This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening as per your time zones and locations. Hope my voice is clear and audible to everyone, guys. Are you able to hear me properly?
Yes.
Thank you. So let's see our today's topic. So in the previous class, we have done with partitioning. Now let us try to talk about another important chapter, swap space management. See, when we say swap space management, you remember during installation, we created one partition called swap, right? And I told you that it is a support to RAM. But how exactly the swap is supporting RAM? Let us try to understand that. See, we need a RAM or the main memory, whatever you call, in the system to boost up the performance of your system by helping a process to get executed. Any process, if it wants to get executed, it needs to come into RAM. Any process, if it wants to get executed, it must be present in RAM. No process can be executed outside of RAM. Even moving a cursor from one location to other location is a process, and this process needs to be in the RAM if it wants to get executed. Let us say that we have a RAM with a small size, maybe 1024 MB or 1 GB, for example. Now, out of which 1000 MB is used. Let us say there are so many processes that are sitting inside my RAM, and as a result of which almost 1000 MB is utilized. So I am left with how much? I am left with just 24 MB. So I'm having only 24 MB remaining. And in this scenario, I want to start a new process. Maybe I want to open up a browser, or I'm starting a script, or I'm starting an application or database, whatever it might be. Now that requires 50 MB of RAM to be free. So this new process requires 50 MB of RAM, but I'm having only 24 MB remaining. So requirement is more and what I have is very less. In this scenario, if I try to start a process, do you think it is going to get started? Obviously not. It is going to consume the total available memory. The system may hang up, and to free up your RAM, the kernel will crash or kernel will restart your system, right? And this is a dangerous situation. If your kernel or your system crashes, that's not good for your production environment. Now, how can we avoid this situation? See, one thing you have to understand that not always all the processes present in the RAM will be active. 1000 MB is utilized by various processes which are available in the RAM, right? But those processes may not be active. Some of them might be inactive, some of them may be standby kind of thing, right? So those processes which are inactive, which are standby, not in use right now, why to keep them inside RAM and make the RAM engaged or busy? They are waiting. They can wait at some other place, isn't it? So those processes which are not in active mode, which are not in use, will be moved to other place where they can wait, which is called as swap space or swap area. So swap is a support to RAM. Don't think it is a substitute to RAM. It is just a support. What kind of support? To move inactive processes, the processes which are not active, which are not in use right now. Maybe after some time they may get active, but right now they are not in use. So it moves all the inactive processes from swap, from RAM to swap to free up the RAM only for active processes. So that is how the swap space will be helping out. And again, if a process wants to get activated, it will come back one more time to RAM. Now, whenever a process goes out of RAM, we call it as swap out. And whenever a process comes back again into RAM, we call it as swap in. At peak hour of your businesses, you may find out that swap in, swap out activities might be happening. Limited swap in, swap out activities are happening. That's fine. That's okay. It happens. Sometimes there are many processes that might get activated. So swap need will come into the picture. RAM will start moving the processes between swap and RAM. Those things would be happening out. It's okay. But too high swap in, swap out activities always are not good. Definitely not good. So if you find out that always swap in, swap out going on, then you need to check out whether the swap space is sufficient or not. Now, even after increasing the swap space, also the same story is continuing. Then you have to finally make a decision to upgrade your RAM. Because however big swap space you maintain, it is only for storing inactive processes. So if always the same thing is going on, anytime you see swap in, swap out is going on, and always these things are going on, then increasing RAM would be a great idea. If by increasing swap, sometimes if it is happening and it is getting managed out, that's okay. But always swap in, swap out, it is going on, and always the busy thing of your RAM is going on, then you need to upgrade your RAM because increasing swap in that situation may not be useful. Okay, so this is the story behind your swap space. And the movement of a process from RAM to swap and swap to RAM is done by kernel automatic. We don't do any of those movement. What we do is we maintain a swap space. And the concept of swap space is not new in Linux. Almost every operating system maintain this concept. In IBM AIX and HP UX, we used to call it paging space. In Solaris and Linux, we call it as swap space. In Windows also, we call it as virtual memory or paging. There also files would might there. So every operating system manage this kind of concept, swap space, with different names might be, but concept would be same. Now, what size did we maintain for swap? We maintained double of the RAM. So if our RAM is 1 GB, we went for 2 GB. If our RAM is 2 GB, we went for 4 GB. Like that, we have given the size. But suppose if my RAM is 1 TB, see now RAMs are coming in TBs also. If I have a RAM of 1 TB, would you suggest me to keep a RAM, a swap of 2 TB? If I have 1 TB RAM, shall I go for 2 TB swap in that scenario? No, it would be a very big ask. 2 TB space for these temporary storages? No. See, if I have 1 TB RAM in itself, I don't think that I would be needing swap at all. But still, as a precautionary measure, I need to keep the swap space. So in that scenario, we have to go for minimum recommended swap space. spaces. If you cannot have double of the size, then at least this much you should maintain. If your RAM is up to 4 GB, then minimum 2 GB swap we should maintain. If we have a RAM of 4 to 16 GB, then minimum 4 GB swap is recommended. If you have 16 to 64 GB RAM, then minimum 8 GB swap is required. If you have 64 GB to 256 GB RAM, then at least 16 GB of swap we should maintain. For 256 to 512 GB RAM, at least 32 GB swap is maintained, and 512 to 1 TB RAM require 64 GB of swap, right? So this is the requirement of RAM and swap. Now let us see how can we work with this swap spaces and all. So let me first log in and show you how to check the current status of your RAM and swap both. See, in the previous class, I told you that if you want to check the status of the partition usage, you can use a command df. Now, df usually shows the size in KB for utilization. If I want to see in MB, then I'll go for df-m. It will show in megabytes. But best of all is df-h. H stands for human readable format. So wherever it requires, it use MBs, GBs, and if there is a requirement of KB, it may show in KB also. So in a best possible understandable manner, it is going to show us the output using kilobyte also, megabyte also, and gigabyte also, whichever unit is understandable by humans. Same way, here we have a command called free. See, free will show the output in KB. If you want to see in MB, you go with free-m. If you want to see it in GB, there is an option -G available. In DF, G will not work, but in free, G will work. But if you want to see in best possible output, you can use free-h. H will use almost all available units, and it might show you in the best possible output. So total memory it says is around 1.8 GB, used is 475, free is 846, 10 MB or 10 megabytes is in shared mode. See, two related application may be using same area of memory. So those memory used by two applications at the same time is called as shared memory because they are related. And to boost or speed up the performance of your system, some memory will be in buffer or cache. So including buffer cache and free memory, the total available memory would be 1.2 GB like that. And the swap space is 4 GB, used is nothing, entire 4 GB it says it is free. Okay, that's fine. Now, I want to see exclusive swap detail, only the details related to swap. So in that scenario, I'll go for swap on. When I say swap on, it shows me that out of all partitions, which partition is my SDA3, what is the type, what's the size, used is how much, and priority is what. See, priority it says is -2. See, once RAM is filled up, then the things will be coming to swap. So the priority for swap will be in minus. Plus will be with RAM, and if RAM is not sufficient, then the things would be coming to this negative area, right? And if you add one more partition as a swap, the priority will be -3. One more partition you add, it will be -4. One more partition you add, -5. So all the swap partitions you will be adding will be getting negative priority. If RAM is not sufficient, then the things will be moved out into this swap area. Okay, all right. Now, moving forward, let us say that swap is not sufficient. I checked out the detail that we found out that swap is getting utilized. As of now, it says 0 byte is used, but let us say in some scenario it has reached to 3.8 GB, something like that, or 3.7 GB, something. Now, as soon as the swap is getting filled up, you will start getting swap related errors. We call it as forking errors. See why it is called as forking errors? The thing is, kernel will fork a process from RAM and put it into swap. And again, if a process wants to get activated, it will fork a process from swap to RAM. So it's like using a fork to move something from here to there. That's the reason we call it as forking errors. So it might say that forking not possible, or forking some issues it might be giving you, or swap related messages will be available like swap is not sufficient kind of thing. So in that scenario, what we could do, we have to increase the size of swap. So as I was telling you, in this scenario, you have to expand the swap. So if you see the forking errors, so if you are getting this forking errors, or swap not sufficient error, or swap is filled up error, you need to consider expanding the swap. Guys, let us say that expanding the size of normal partition has some complexities. Suppose you have already created a partition whose size is 500 MB or 700 MB. Now making it 1 GB, 2 GB has its own limitation and some problems. So I don't want to expand the size of the partition over here. See, SDA3 is already being used as swap, whose size is 4 GB. Now I cannot expand the size of 4 GB to something else. So what I can do in that scenario, if my RAM is not sufficient, I need to expand swap. So in that scenario, you have only one choice, that you should create a new partition and give it to swap. See, directly expanding the size of swap partition has some complexities. So we never prefer directly expanding the size, even though with some parted command, resize is possible. For example, if I go to parted command, parted slash dev sda, or if I say hyphen hyphen help, do I get it over here? Right. See, over here there's an option to resize partition. But guys, resizing partition has its own limitation, and if you don't know what you are doing, it may become an unsafe practice. The data will be corrupted, lots of things might arise. So, and mostly in case of swap, it is not possible to resize a partition and go with that, because it may affect ongoing processes. That may affect your production applications also. So I'm not going to resize anything. What we will do is we will simply create a new partition. Suppose swap is not sufficient, so I'm going to create a new partition, and that partition we are going to use for swap activity. So what I'll do, I'll simply go to fdisk, or you can use parted command. You know how to create a partition. Anyway, I prefer going with fdisk, so I'll go to fdisk sda. I'll print the partition table. I will add the new partition. Starting value is OK. Now I would like to give the size 1 GB, right? Now print the partition table, and you can see that SDS7 is created. But guys, this SDS7 is created as a normal regular partition. Now, guys, if you ask a normal partition to behave as swap, do you think it is going to work out properly? No. There is a rule in partitioning that whenever you have created a partition for some special purpose, you need to change the ID of the partition according to that concept. If you have created a partition for normal concept, you have to set a normal ID. If you have created a partition for swap concept, then according to swap, you have to change the ID. Same way, there is one more special concept which we are going to learn in tomorrow class, LVM. So if you have created a partition for LVM, then according to LVM, you have to set the ID. So whatever type you have created a partition, according to that the ID must be changed. Otherwise, it is not going to behave properly and you will face difficulties in the coming time. So not to have that problem, I would like to change the ID of partition number 7. To change the ID, I'll first of all go with M to find what is the command to do that. Now when we type M, you see there is an option here, T, change a partition type. So let me go with T, right? Which partition you want to modify? I want to modify partition number 7. Now, what is the code you want to give? See, I don't know what should be the code for swap, for example. So you can type L to list all the codes. You can go with capital L or small l, doesn't matter. Both will give you same output. So if you see here, there is an option 82 for Linux swap. Then there is 83 for normal Linux. See, by default, whenever you create a partition, the code you will be getting is 83. 83 is a default partition code. Whenever in fdisk you create a partition, by default, you will be getting the code as 83. And there is one more code what you should remember, 8E for Linux LVM. 82 for swap, 83 regular Linux default partition code, and 8E for LVM. 82, 83, and 8E. At least these three codes every Linux administrator should know. I'm sorry. Now let me go for P to print the partition table, right? So, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have typed 82. I'm so sorry. I'll say T partition number 7 and the code I should use is 82. Now let me print the partition table and you see SDS 7 is now compatible with Linux swap. Right, in Solaris also the same code is there. That is the reason it has used slash Solaris, so ignore Solaris. 82 is the code that we used for swap partition. Now let me save and quit by typing W. So it says partition table is altered. You can confirm by fdisk-l and you can confirm by going into proc partition to check the kernel status. So in that also I found out SDS7 is updated. So normally guys, after creating the partition, let us say we have created a normal partition. So if you have created a normal partition, after creating the partition, you must format it. So how can I format a partition? Normally we use mkfs.ext or .xfs, we use it, right? But this is not a normal partition, this is a swap partition. So if you want to format the swap partition, then you have to use mkswap followed by partition name. To use a partition as a swap, you need to format it by using a command mkswap. Mkswap and the device name or the partition name. What is the partition name? SDA7. So you see it got formatted. UUID has also been assigned. So this is the way how you have to format a partition for swap. So first create the partition with code number 82, save and quit, and then format it using mkswap. Now only by formatting you see there is no change in memory statistics or swap statistic. It is still showing 4 and swap on is still showing SDA3. SDA7 information is not available. See, normally after formatting the partition, the next step we will apply is mounting and unmounting in case if it is a normal partition. But here it is not a normal partition, so we don't mount and unmount. In this scenario, we will go for activating and deactivating the swap space. To activate a swap space, we go with swap on and the partition name. To deactivate, we go with swap off and the partition name. Swap on for mounting kind of thing, activating. Swap off, deactivating or unmounting kind of thing you can think. But here we don't call mounting, unmounting. Here we call activating and deactivating. So in order to activate the partition, I'll go for swap on and the partition I want to activate as a swap is SDA7. As soon as you activate, you see free command is showing total swap as 5 GB. Now you say swap on, you'll find that SDA7 is also added into the list of swap with the size around 1 GB and the priority is -3. Now if you want to deactivate it, you can say swap off /dev SDA7. Now if you check out free-edge, you see we are back to 4 GB and swap on is showing only SDA3. Now let us say that I want to use this swap and I want to make it permanent. Permanent in the sense every time the system restart, I don't want to manually sit activating it. I want this new swap partition to be automatically activated every time the system is restarting. So in order to go with permanent thing, guys, you remember we have to go to FS tab. But first I'm going to find UUID. I'll say blkid /dev SDA7. Let me copy this entire phrase UUID something. Now I'll go to ETCFS tab. In ETCFS tab, I'll open a new line. First of all, I'm going to put UUID over here. And then I need to give the mount point. See the mount point, what it should be for swap. See, for swap, there is no mount point. Swap is not a normal partition to have a mount point, isn't it? So in this scenario, you can type swap as a mount point if you want, or the most simple thing you can mention is none. You can say that there is no mount point for swap partition. It is not a regular partition to hold a mount point. So I can give UUID and in place of mount point, you can simply mention none, no mount point. And what is the type of file system we have used for it? So I'll say the file system I have used here is swap. Mount options defaults. Don't give ext or xfs here, guys. It's a special swap file system. Then mount option 0, space dumping also 0. So we have to give UUID. You have to give file system. You can type swap or you can type none. Then, sorry, mount point, none or swap.
Um,
File system, yes, Hamid.
That UUID, the mail I sent to you. So I
I
was trying
replied
to,
to it. I
yes, yes,
replied.
yes, I saw it. I was trying to do everything, but when I copy the UUID and I try to paste it over here, it's going to push everything downwards. So anytime I try to edit it, so everything gets messed up. So I don't know what's going on.
See, you must be in insert mode. Delete that existing UUID, and in place of that, you have to type new UUID, or you have to do right click or maybe shift insert to paste it. Anyway, don't worry. If you're facing difficulty, I'll try to take a team viewer session and help you, maybe after the class.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So over here, UUID, none. There is no mount point for it. Swap is the file system used. Mount options are defaults, no dumping, and no FSCK, right? That's it. Now I will save and quit. Done. So guys, once you have made the entry in FS tab, how would you check whether the entry is working or not? Normally for a regular partition, after adding the entry to test whether it is working or not, for a regular partition, we have used what? Mount hyphen A. But guys, after typing mount hyphen A, if I say free, do you find, sorry, free hyphen H, do you find 5 GB over here? No, it's still 4 GB. And if you say swap on, still you see SDA3 is listed. SDA7 is not available. Why is that so? Why mount hyphen A is not working? The reason is mount hyphen A will target only normal partition. See, you can mount and unmount only normal regular partition. You cannot mount or unmount swap, isn't it? So when you are dealing with swap, to test it is working or not, you have to use swap on hyphen A. After putting the entry in FS tab, for normal partitions, you have to test it with mount hyphen A. But if you have added the entry for swap and you want to activate all swap partitions entry in FS tab, you have to use swap on hyphen A. So as we are testing swap, I'm telling swap on hyphen A. Now, if you say free hyphen H, did you see 5 GB? Yes. And if you say swap on, did you find SDS7 as an entry added? So just add that information in FS tab, and to test whether it is perfect or not or does it have any errors, you must test it by using swap on hyphen A. Swap on hyphen A will try to activate all the entries that are available in FS tab, which is swap related entries. Mount hyphen A will only target normal partitions entries. Like that, you have to test it out. So this is the way you can add the entry in FS tab and make sure that your swap is permanent, so that every time the system is restarting, it is automatically getting activated and we don't have to manually activate each and every swap partition. Now let us say your work is over and you want to get rid of that partition. So what you can do, you can just first see there are common mistakes what people do. I'll tell you. To delete the partition, first of all, you have to deactivate it. Suppose it is being used as a swap partition and directly you have deleted. That's a very wrong practice, and that is only going to create corruptions and confusions. So if you don't want to use SDA7, first step is to deactivate it. Swap off slash dev SDA7. Now you see the partition is deactivated, not in use. You can go to fdisk and you can delete the partition. Or you can simply say parted, go to dev SDA hard disk, In that hard disk, remove partition number 7. Now, if you run fdisk-l, you see your seventh partition is deleted. So you can go to fdisk and delete it, or you can delete it with parted command. That is your choice. Now, after deleting the partition, the most common mistake what people does, not only you, but many people on production environment might do this silly mistake. What is the mistake? We deleted the partition, we deactivated the partition. Great. But if you go to etc fs tab, you see the entry is this available related to swap. We don't have any partition remaining with that UUID. If you just try to test it out, see, if you have a UUID, you can search the partition name also with that UUID. How? Normally with partition name, you are finding UUID. You are telling BLK ID, tell me slash dev SDA6 who it is. It is telling that SDA6 is having that UUID and other detail. But if you have UUID with UUID you can find partition name. You can say BLK ID hyphen U and the ID. So it tells by using the UUID, it tells you that this partition is the name of the partition which belongs to that UUID. Now I have this UUID. Let me copy that UUID and let me search it. BLKID hyphen U and that partition. Did you see it has found anything? Nothing, because there is no partition SDA7 we have deleted, so whatever ID was assigned is also wiped out. So the problem is you have removed the partition, but you forgot to remove the entry from FS tab. Now you reboot the machine, next reboot again it is going to halt into emergency mode, and where you have to go into emergency mode by typing root password, then you have to delete that entry and reboot the machine. So don't do such a silly mistake. Whenever you are deleting a partition, keep this in your mind that when we don't want partition, then don't keep UUID. So let me delete that entry by using DD to delete the entire line. So when you say DD, the whole line is deleted in VI editor basic. So save and quit. Whenever we delete a partition, we should also consider deleting the entry from FS tab, right? Don't keep entry and delete the partition. Do both of them. Delete the partition and delete the entry from FS tab. Okay, now moving forward, the next thing what I wanted to do over here is, suppose there is one scenario with you like this. Let us say that when you said fdisk-l, let's say you want to create a new swap partition, but when you say fdisk-l or parted-l, whatever, you are finding that there is no space remaining in your hard disk to create a new partition. Guys, in order to increase the size of swap, you have to create a new partition. But when you check fdisk or parted, you found that there is no space remaining in your hard disk to create a new partition. Guys, I don't have space in my hard disk to create a partition. On the other side, swap is getting filled up. Now, when I approach my higher authority that this is the incident, I need a new partition to be created, but disk is not having space remaining. What shall I do? So they says that somehow you manage for 1 hour or 2 hour, we will provide you the new space or new disk, whatever. In today's time, guys, allocating new space to your system is matter of second, because we have a concept called storage area network, SAN or NAS. So from there, in fraction of seconds, the new space they'll give it. But in old times when we used to work where we don't used to have storage system like that, then it used to take some time. So there, this scenario used to be very often. Nowadays, we don't see such a scenario that you need a disk space and you have to wait for 2 hours, 3 hours kind of thing, or more than that. That concept is now evaporated thanks to SAN and NAS storages. Anyway, I just want you to remember this scenario. We don't know, even sometimes in the storage, there might be some issue. So to allocate the space, it might take some time. So till then, how we can manage? So scenario is I need to create a new partition for swap, but there is no space remaining in hard disk. We are asked to manage somehow till our management arrange something. So how can I manage the swap without creating a new partition? The problem is it's a production time. All applications are important. I cannot shut down something to free up the swap also or RAM also. So everything is important ongoing. The target thing is I must increase swap. If disk is not available also, I have to increase it so that at least sometime I should manage it. See, in this scenario, we are sure that in the hard disk there is no space remaining. That's fine. But you see, there are partitions created SDA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, there is no space in the disk. But do you think these partitions, whatever we have created, like SDA2 is created with 15 GB capacity. Now, do you think that entire 15 GB is used? There is no free space in this thing? I don't think it is possible. There might be some space remaining in the partition. So what I'll do, I'll borrow some space from some partition and use it for swap concept. And once the space is available, I'll give back this borrowed space to original partition. But how can I take the space from SDA2 and use it for swap? We cannot create new partition, and I told you that resizing is little risky. So what can I do in that scenario? See, I'll first of all check it out in SDA2 space is there or not. So I'll say df-edge, tell me about SDA2. So it says SDA2 capacity is 15 GB, used is 4.4 GB, 11 GB is remaining, that is 29% is used. And it is mounted on slash. That means in SDA2, if you want to put anything, you have to put it in slash. Slash is the mount point for SDA2. So what I'm going to do here is when 11 GB is free, I want to borrow 1 GB for some time. And how I'm going to borrow it? By creating a file in SDA2 and use it for swap concept. Yes, guys, swap can be used as a file also. See, it is highly recommended that we should use swap as a partition because IOPS, reading, writing, input, output will be faster when compared to a file. Because the partition is block based and file is file based, it is going to have some reading writing difference performance issues. So if you want to get best performance, keep it as a partition. But in a scenario where we don't have space to create a partition, we can use it as a file also. So here I want to create a file in SDA2. So if I want to use SDA2 space, I should create the file in slash, right? Same way, if you have other partition, suppose you want to put the space in SDA6, so you have to create the file in test2. Or if you want to create the partition in SDA5, we want to create the file in test. So the thing is, whichever partition you want to use, in that partition's mount point, I should keep the file. So when I create 1 GB file in slash, it used the space of SDA2. That is the logic. So how to create a file with 1 GB capacity? Now guys, if you say use VI editor or touch command to create a file, touch command will create a file with 0 size. And with VI editor, you have to write something in the file so that the space is used up till 1 GB. Now guys, if I put my whole life story also, it would go into 1 or 2 MB. And moreover, to put all my life story, I have to think and type so much data. And I don't have that much of time, isn't it? Right? So in this scenario, I need randomly copy data and put it into a file and get a size of 1 GB. Now that can be done by using a concept called DD, disk dump or device dump, whatever you call it. DD is a special command that can copy dump of data into a file. So we have DD command with if and off, where if stands for input file and off stands for output file, source and destination. So there is a special file, guys, in Unix, dev u random or simply dev random also is there. Anyway, dev u random, the role of this file is to randomly generate binary data, zeros and ones. So that's not problem. I need size. Whether it is a binary or normal text, I don't mind, but I need some size. So I'll say dev urandom. I'll say that take the data from urandom and put it into a file in forward slash. See, I want to use SDA2 space, so I need to use slash location. Now after that, whatever name of the file you want to give, you can give it. I use swap hyphen file. You can simply say swap file or swap01, swap02 or whatever name you like. Now blocks per second, I want to generate 1 MB. See, in one cycle of generating the data, I want to generate 1 MB data. You can say generate 1 KB data, 1 GB data, whatever. I'm generating 1 MB data in one cycle. So if in one cycle 1 MB data is generating, to get 1 GB data, how many cycles do I need to repeat it? So I'll say that repeat all that generating process to 1024. Count is how many times you want to repeat. To achieve 1 GB, I'll repeat it for 1024. To achieve 2 GB, I'll go for 2048, like that. So let us try out this command. I'll say dd take input from slash dev u random and put the output in a file slash swap file. Whatever name you like, name is your choice, right? And blocks per second, see, I'm giving 1 MB. If you want, you can give 1 GB. That means in one cycle, generate 1 GB. So how many times do I need to repeat it if it is 1 GB? Just one time. So in a single cycle, I'll get 1 GB capacity. Or if you are giving 1 MB, which would be little faster. So I'm going with 1 MB data in one cycle, and I'll say repeat overall cycles 2024. Now you see total 1024 times this dd command will throw the data in swap file. It will append the file, append the file, append the file, and like that 1 GB data will be generated. This is going to take a small time, and you see 1 GB file has been created. Now if you just check it out, ls-l and the file name. What is the file name? Swap file, right? So here it is showing you the size, or maybe you can say H to see the size in human readable format. So you see 1 GB capacity is what it is telling you. ls-lh will actually tell you that the size of this particular file is around 1 GB, right? So I got 1 GB capacity file generated. But you see, it is having read write, read and read access. Read write access for owner, that is fine. read access for group and others. See, this is not a simple normal file that anybody should come and read the data inside it. It is a special file that I'm going to use it for swap concept. So whenever you are dealing with swap file, you must not have permissions for group and others. It will throw that message when you try to format this file. It tells you that, okay, I'm formatting, but change the permission to 600. 6 means read and write for owner, but no permission for group and no permission for others. I want to remove all the permissions from group and others. So I'll say chmod, give only access to owner, no access to group, and no access to others. For which file? Swap file. Now, if you just check it out, you see only owner is having the permission. Group and others are not having permission. So we used dd command and generated 1 GB file. Then we change the permission of the file. Now I need to format this file with swap. To format a file with swap, you have to go with a command mkswap-f. F as it as a file. It's not a normal partition, it's a file. So I'll say mkswap format a file and the location is /swap file. So you see it formatted the partition as swap. It has given the UUID and you know where to use this UUID concept. You can put it in FS tab to make a permanent activation. Now partition is formatted, sorry, the file is formatted. Now you run free command. There is no change in swap size. That's fine. Swap on command, there is no information about swap file because we have not activated. Let us activate it. I'll say swap on and the file location /swap file. Now you say free-h. Earlier it was 4 GB, right? But now you see it has changed to 5 GB. And you say swap on. You see /swap file is a normal file. No more, it is a partition. It's a file. What's the capacity? 1024 MB, priority is 3. So somehow we may manage swap like that if the disk capacity is not allowing you to create a partition. So at least we can create a file in some partition which has free space remaining, use it as a swap. And once our space is available or new disk is connected, in that you can create a partition, use it as a swap, and you can work with that. There is no problem in that scenario, and you can get rid of the file. Now suppose I got the hard disk. In the hard disk I created a swap partition, I activated the swap partition. Now I don't need swap file, I want to get rid of it. See, to remove that swap file, if you don't want to use it anymore as a swap partition, then first of all, deactivate it. How to deactivate a swap? You have to say swap off and the file location. Just check it out by using swap on and free-h. Then if you want to delete that, see, as of now, if you check the slash location, earlier it was 4.4 GB free, something like that. Now it is 5.4 GB used because 1 GB that swap file is consuming. Just remove that file, swap file. And now you check df-h, it is back to 4.4 GB free, right? So that's the way how you can use a file also as a swap, and you can reclaim your space of the partition by deleting the file, and automatically your disk will get back the space, or the partition will get back the space. So this is how, guys, we have to manage and work with swap. That's all about swap partition. Now if you have any questions or queries, guys, you can put your questions now.
Sir. Good morning, sir. My question is, if you have a hard disk is a 1 terabyte, did you need the swap? Do you need a swap or
See, swap will be useful for RAM, not for hard disk. So if you
so?
have 1 TB RAM, then you have to think whether to maintain swap or not. Disk is a different thing and RAM is a different thing, right? Access memory, what is available. See, whenever we buy a hard drive, that's a different scenario. Whenever you buy a laptop, you check what is the RAM is available inside it. RAM is for processing your data or processing your application something. So this is different thing. Having a hard disk with 1 TB does not have anything related to swap.
So if we create the new swap, do we give the same size with the previous one or
Whatever size you require, you can create swap. See, while creating the RAM, while installing the partition, we gave double of the RAM. But now that double is also not sufficient. So how much more you want to give is your choice. 1 GB, 2 GB, 5 GB, 8 GB, 10 GB, that is your choice. During installation, that is a different thing. After installation, it is your choice. So while installing the operating system, we need to go at least with double of the RAM. But once the system is running, you find it is insufficient. So upgrading is your choice, whatever you want.
so? Sir, is the RAM is the 1 terabyte RAM is a server. So is there any command to see the to check the RAM size or
Come on, Hamsi, come on. I just showed you free hyphen H. What is this memory here? This memory is nothing but RAM.
thanks.
The memory, what you see here, is nothing but RAM. So even on the server, it might be same.
Sir, how do we upgrade the partition size?
Normal partition upgradation might have some issues, but tomorrow I'll show you LVM method. Using through LVM, how we can increase, decrease the size. That is the recommended method. So that we will see tomorrow definitely.
Okay, sure, sure. Thanks.
Okay, we'll stop the session here. Whoever wants to leave the session can leave. Whoever wants to stay back can stay. Right? I'm stopping the session here. 1 second. Stop.